Today, we will be looking at two horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. Both are so unique that we haven't covered anything like these before. The first one is about a caver who fell into a crevice in 1997 and remained trapped there for over 10,000 days. What happened to him till the year 2025 will leave you completely stunned. The second story is about a medical emergency that occurred at the most terrifying time imaginable, miles beneath the surface, in underwater caves with no way out. As always, viewer discretion is advised. June 1997. The mountains of northern Pakistan blazed under an unusually hot sun. 33-year-old Nasir Rudin gripped his horse's reins tighter as he looked back at the village he and his brother were leaving forever. The Sala Kyle tribe was tearing itself apart. What started as a property dispute had escalated into bloodshed. Relatives were choosing sides. Men were dying in the streets. The feud had reached a point where staying meant certain death. Nasir's heart ached as he thought about what he was leaving behind: his wife and two young children who depended on him, but the violence had made it impossible to stay. If he remained, he would either be killed or forced to kill, and his family would suffer either way. He and his brother Kathiruddin knew these mountains well. They had spent years exploring the caves and glaciers of the region, learning the secret paths that smugglers and refugees used. Their knowledge of the treacherous terrain was their only advantage now. They packed what they could and rode into the night, heading for the remote Khoistan region, where nobody would follow. The brothers had been riding for hours when they reached Supat Valley. This wasn't just any valley. It was a place locals whispered about, a place where the ice never melted and travelers sometimes vanished without a trace. Nasir's horse snorted nervously as they approached a massive glacier. The ice stretched out like a frozen ocean, beautiful but deadly. Cracks and crevices split its surface like scars. They needed shelter. The mountain winds were getting stronger and exhaustion was setting in. That's when Nasir spotted a dark opening in the glacier wall, a cave. Kathir stayed with the horses while Nasir walked toward the cave entrance. The opening was wide enough for a man to enter comfortably inside. The walls glowed with an eerie blue light that ancient compressed ice creates. Nasir stepped inside. The temperature dropped instantly. His breath came out in white puffs as he moved deeper into the cave, looking for a place where they could safely camp for the night. Floor looked solid, thick, blue ice that seemed like it had been there for centuries. But appearances in glaciers can be deadly. As Nasir took another step forward, the world exploded beneath his feet. The ice floor wasn't solid at all. It was just a thin shell covering a massive crevice that dropped deep into the glacier's heart. The crack echoed like thunder as the false floor gave way. Nasir plummeted into darkness. He fell past walls of ancient ice, past layers that had been forming for thousands of years. The crevice was narrow, just wide enough for a human body, and it seemed to go on forever. 20 feet down, 50 feet, 100 feet. His body slammed into a narrow ledge deep inside the crevice, and everything went black above. Kathir heard the crash. He ran to the cave entrance and peered into a hole in the floor that seemed to go straight down to hell. He called his brother's name over and over, but only echoes returned. Kathir ran for help. Within hours, local villagers arrived with ropes and lanterns. They lowered men into the crevice as far as they dared, but the crack was too deep and too narrow. The walls were slick ice that offered no grip. They searched for 3 days, but the glacier had already begun to close the wound. New snow was falling and the crevice was sealing itself shut. Nasir had vanished. What happened next was something that no one ever imagined. The moment Nasir's body hit that ledge, the extreme cold began working on him. The temperature was so far below freezing that his body froze almost instantly. But this wasn't ordinary. Freezing, the glacier created perfect conditions for preservation. There was no oxygen down in that crevice, no moisture, no bacteria that could cause decay. Instead of rotting, the coal sucked out all the water from his cells, preserving everything: his skin, His clothes, even his facial features, he became trapped in time years past. August, Nasir's wife waited for news that never came. His 2 children grew up without their father. The family never stopped, hoping he might return. But as the years turned into decades, hope faded. The glacier kept its secret. Every winter, new snow piled on top of the crevice. Every summer, some of it melted, but not enough to reveal what lay beneath. Nasir sank deeper and deeper into the ice for 28 years. He lay there in perfect preservation, like an ancient Egyptian pharaoh in an ice tomb. But the world was changing above the glacier. Starting in the early 2000s, temperatures in northern Pakistan began rising. The change was gradual at first, but it accelerated year after year. The massive glaciers that had existed for millennia started melting faster than they ever had before. Each summer brought record heat. The ice that had taken thousands of years to accumulate began disappearing at an alarming rate. By 2025, the glacier in Sabat Valley had retreated dramatically. Sections that had been buried under tons of ice were now exposed to sunlight for the first time in decades. The landscape looked completely different from when Nasir had first entered that cave on August 1, 2025. A local shepherd named Omar Khan was making his way across what used to be the heart of the glacier. The ice had melted so much that he was walking on ground that had been buried since before he was born. That's when he saw something that stopped him cold. Sticking out of the melting ice was what looked like a person, but that was impossible. Who would be way out here in this remote location? Omar moved closer and couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was a man perfectly preserved. His clothes completely intact. He looked like he had just laid down for a nap. His facial features were clear. His hair was still in place, and even his clothing showed no signs of decay. But this wasn't any recent accident. The man's clothing style was from decades ago. His hair was longer than modern fashion. Something was very strange about this discovery. Omar found an identity card in the man's pocket. The name read Nasiruddin. The card was dated from the 1990s, but it was still perfectly legible after nearly 3 decades in the ice. Word spread quickly through the remote villages. Police arrived to investigate what seemed impossible. A man who had been missing for 28 years preserved as if he had died yesterday. Local police officer Amjad Hussain took charge of the case. When they ran the identification through their records, they discovered that Nasir had indeed been reported missing in June 1997. His brother Qadi Ruddin was still alive and was contacted immediately. The reunion was heartbreaking. Kathir, now much older and grayer, looked at his brother, who appeared exactly as he had on that terrible day in 1997. Time had stood still for Nasir while it had marched on relentlessly for everyone else. DNA tests were ordered to confirm the identity, though Nasir's family recognized him immediately. His clothing, his build, even the scar on his hand from a childhood accident, everything matched their memories perfectly. The discovery made international headlines. Scientists explained how the extreme conditions in the glacier crevice had created a natural mummification process. When a body falls into a glacier, the extreme cold freezes. It's so fast that decomposition cannot begin. The lack of moisture and oxygen in the ice creates perfect preservation conditions for Nasir's family. The discovery brought closure after decades of uncertainty.